Guantanamo Bay, one of the most infamous military bases in the world. A place that has been at the center of geopolitical struggles, military conflicts, and human rights debates for over a century. But how did a small piece of land in Cuba become a symbol of U.S. power and controversy? In today's video, we're diving into the long and complex history of Guantanamo Bay, from its origins as a strategic naval base to its transformation into a high-security detention center in the War on Terror. But before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our deep dives into history, politics, and global events. And if you enjoy this video, give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. Now, let's explore the story of Guantanamo Bay. To understand the history of Guantanamo Bay, we have to go back to the late 19th century, a time of great upheaval and change in the Caribbean. At the time, Cuba was a Spanish colony, but Cuban rebels were fighting for independence. These rebels, driven by a desire for freedom and self-determination, waged a relentless struggle against Spanish rule. The U.S. had economic and political interests in Cuba, including its lucrative sugar industry, and saw an opportunity to intervene. American businessmen had significant investments in Cuban sugar plantations, making the island's stability crucial to U.S. economic interests. In 1898, the explosion of the USS Maine in Havana Harbor, which killed over 260 American sailors, became a catalyst for war. The mysterious explosion shocked the American public and stirred nationalistic fervor. Though the exact cause of the explosion remains disputed, U.S. newspapers, led by yellow journalism from publishers like William Randolph Hearst, blamed Spain, fueling public support for war. Sensationalist headlines and dramatic stories played a significant role in swaying public opinion. The Spanish-American War lasted only a few months, but it had major consequences. The swift victory by the U.S. showcased its growing military power and marked a turning point in its foreign policy. Spain was forced to relinquish control over Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. This marked the end of Spain's colonial empire in the Americas and the beginning of a new era of American influence. While Cuba technically gained independence, the U.S. maintained significant control over the island. American influence was deeply embedded in Cuban politics and economy. In 1901, the Platt Amendment was added to Cuba's new constitution, giving the U.S. the right to intervene militarily in Cuban affairs whenever it saw fit. This amendment effectively made Cuba a U.S. protectorate. It also allowed the U.S. to establish a perpetual naval base on Cuban soil. This strategic move ensured a permanent American military presence in the Caribbean. In 1903, the U.S. and Cuba signed a treaty that officially leased 45 square miles of land at Guantanamo Bay to the United States for $2,000 in gold per year, about $4,000 at the time. This lease was intended to be perpetual. Adjusted for inflation, today's payments are around $4,085 per year, but Cuba has refused to cash the checks since 1959. This refusal symbolizes Cuba's ongoing protest against U.S. presence. And just like that, Guantanamo Bay was under permanent U.S. control. The base has since become a symbol of American military power and geopolitical strategy. The U.S. military presence in Cuba was solidified by the actions of figures like Theodore Roosevelt and the Rough Riders who played a significant role in the Spanish-American War. Their exploits became legendary and helped shape American imperial ambitions. The establishment of the naval base at Guantanamo Bay marked the beginning of a long-term U.S. military presence in the Caribbean. This presence has had lasting implications for regional security and U.S. foreign policy. This base would become a strategic point for U.S. operations in the region, influencing U.S.-Cuban relations for decades to come. The legacy of Guantanamo Bay continues to shape the geopolitical landscape of the Caribbean. So, for decades, Guantanamo Bay was primarily used as a naval base and coaling station, serving as a strategic outpost for the United States Navy. Its location in the Caribbean made it an ideal spot for refueling and resupplying naval vessels. It became an important refueling hub for the U.S. fleet, particularly during World War I, when the need for a reliable supply chain was critical to maintaining naval operations across the Atlantic. During World War II, Guantanamo played a critical role in protecting Allied supply routes in the Caribbean, where German U-boats were a constant threat. The base's strategic importance grew as it became a key point for anti-submarine warfare. The base was also used for training military personnel and as a staging ground for anti-submarine operations. This dual role made it an indispensable asset for the U.S. Navy during the war. In 1959, Fidel Castro's revolution overthrew Cuba's U.S.-backed government, dramatically altering the political landscape of the region. Castro strongly opposed the American presence at Guantanamo, calling it an imperialist occupation. His government frequently demanded the return of the territory to Cuba. Tensions escalated after the Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961, when the U.S. attempted and failed to overthrow Castro. This event further strained the already tense relations between the two nations. The following year, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, Guantanamo became a flashpoint between the U.S. and Soviet-backed Cuba. The base was on high alert as the world teetered on the brink of nuclear war. In response to rising tensions, Castro cut off the base's water supply, but the U.S. countered by building its own desalination plant. This move ensured the base's self-sufficiency in water. To this day, Guantanamo remains self-sufficient in electricity and water, a testament to its strategic resilience and importance. Despite Cuba's demands to return the land, the U.S. has refused, arguing that the lease is legally binding. This ongoing dispute continues to be a point of contention in U.S.-Cuba relations. In the 21st century, Guantanamo gained notoriety as a detention center for suspected terrorists, further complicating its role in U.S. military operations and sparking international debate over human rights and legal issues. So, Guantanamo's role changed dramatically in the 1990s, shifting from a naval base to a place of refuge and detention. The base became a temporary detention center for thousands of Haitian and Cuban refugees, fleeing political and economic instability, seeking safety and a new life. The U.S. detained them in makeshift camps, sparking early human rights concerns and drawing international attention to the conditions they faced. But after September 11, 2001, Guantanamo took on an even darker role, becoming synonymous with the War on Terror. President George W. Bush launched the War on Terror. and the base was transformed into a high-security prison for suspected terrorists, altering its purpose once again. Hundreds of detainees, many captured in Afghanistan and Iraq, were brought to Guantanamo, where they were held indefinitely, without trial, often in harsh conditions. Interrogation techniques at Guantanamo included waterboarding, stress positions, and sleep deprivation. Methods that many legal experts and human rights organizations classified as torture, raising ethical and legal questions. Over the years, legal battles erupted over whether detainees had constitutional rights, leading to significant court cases and public debate. The Supreme Court ruled in cases like Boumediene versus Bush in 2008 that detainees do have the right to challenge their imprisonment in U.S. courts, a landmark decision. Personal stories of former detainees reveal the harsh realities of life inside Guantanamo, highlighting the human cost of indefinite detention and the psychological impact on those held. Today, Guantanamo remains a symbol of controversy, with ongoing debates about its future and the legacy it leaves behind, as activists and policymakers continue to grapple with its place in history. By the 2000s, Guantanamo had become a global symbol of human rights abuses. In 2008, President Barack Obama promised to close the prison, arguing that it damaged America's reputation. But closing Guantanamo was politically difficult. Congress blocked efforts to transfer detainees to the U.S., and the prison remained open. In 2018, Donald Trump signed an order to keep Guantanamo open indefinitely, arguing that it was still needed for counterterrorism. When Joe Biden took office, he resumed efforts to close the facility. Today, only 30 detainees remain, but the prison still costs taxpayers $540 million per year to operate. Experts argue that closing Guantanamo is essential for human rights, while others believe it remains a necessary tool for national security. The future of Guantanamo remains uncertain, with ongoing debates about its role and potential repurposing. Guantanamo Bay has been a U.S. military base for over 120 years, and despite international criticism, it remains open. Should the U.S. close Guantanamo Bay? Should it return the land to Cuba? The future of Guantanamo Bay remains uncertain, with debates on its closure and the return of land to Cuba ongoing. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more deep dives into history and politics.